everyone, welcome to another episode of Trust and Safety Talks with Social and Media Matters. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Boloka, who is not only the CEO of Film and Publication Board, but also a dear friend. To share a little bit more about him, he's a passionate ambassador for online safety policy within the African context and internationally. And he has more than 15 years of work experience and public service in various capacities. He possesses immense experience in public broadcast services, policy development, and regulatory oversight. I once again welcome you, Dr. Boloka. So, I would like to begin by asking you if you can share a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and your work.
Thank you very much, Persista, for having me this morning, and together with the entire team from Social Media Matters in India. I think it's an honor for me to be doing this interview all the way from South Africa and share our experiences with the people of India, a very close partner of South Africa across all levels. I think even at political level, India is a member of BRICS, which South Africa is also. So I think this shows the kind of relationship that we have. But like you indicated, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Film and Publication Board and a statutory online content regulator in South Africa, and which exists solely to protect the public against what is defined in the Films and Publications Act as harmful and prohibited content. Harmful content constitutes that kind of a content that has got psychosocial harm on the public and the children, such as your CSAM, cyberbullying, trolling, and so forth. Then on the other hand, prohibited content is the content that has got the capacity or to cause harm, such as your hate speech, your content that incite violence or can cause a lot of harm to the society as a whole. Misinformation, disinformation is part of that, what we call prohibited content. So how do we do that as the Film and Publication Board? One, we classify videos, games, and films, and issue ratings to ensure that there's a proper age in terms of the audience or consumption of that kind of content. Secondly, we issue registration, or we register platforms such as your search engines, your streaming services, and user-to-user kind of content, platforms that distribute content as well. So for them to operate in South Africa, we issue them with a certificate. We also manage public complaints. In other words, any member of the public has got the right to complain to the Film and Publication Board regarding content that is distributed online, and then we deal with those public complaints. And we also operate a hotline to report child sexual abusive material. Hence, we are a member of the international network of hotlines, which is based in Amsterdam, where we are also the vice chair of that. So for us, that's what we do every single day at the FPB. We do a lot of public education and awareness and online safety, and we collaborate with various stakeholders like Social Media Matters in India and other partners elsewhere in the world, because we understand that it's not a task that one regulator or one person can do alone. It requires collaboration. Hence, I think working with all the partners locally and internationally across the world is key to the work that we do. So that's what we do as the Film and Publication Board.
That's so interesting to know. It's quite wide with the issues that you engage in, you work on, and how you're trying to combat some of the issues in South African context, especially. So when we see technology rising, when we see there is a rapid evolution in these digital technologies. So what emerging trends or challenges do you foresee in the realm of online content regulation, if I especially focus upon child content?
One thing is that we see unprecedented increase levels of online harms for whether it's CSAM or CSMS, in other words, the content that exposes children to that kind of content. We see an increase in that. But it's also complex because it's aided by technology, whether it's deep fakes, whether it's cloning of voices. We see a major increase in that. But the one of the biggest challenges that from a legislative or regulatory point of view, not many countries are as advantaged as South Africa, where we've got that comprehensive legislation that ensures that the public, including the children in particular, are protected. And that's the biggest challenge that we see. Because for any jurisdiction or for any country, you need an enabling legislation. So we see a lot of increase in that. If you look at the reports produced by whether it's the Internet Watch Foundation in the UK, NECMEC in the US, all of them, and all of the hotlines that are within InHope, you see growth or the increase in the level of abuses that are faced by children, which become more and more sophisticated. And I think at the moment, there are no, there's no kind of stringent enforcement around it, and particularly from the platform owners as well. We don't see the same zeal and passion for them to assist us in keeping that, and that's where lies the problem.
I totally correlate with this, because that zeal and enthusiasm, what you mentioned, is something that needs more significance, and only then we can talk about this um, in large capacity. As the cases are growing, we all are facing this as a challenge of how to combat it, how to limit it, and that is where we all are coming together to work as a regulator, as a civil society organization. That is where the need of collaborations is what we talk about. So, if I have to ask you in personal capacity, there are some, like, if you can share some experiences or moments that have significantly shaped your perspective on online safety and content regulation. So what is that?
Well, I think I want to use a South African experience. It's relating to the power of social media to cause or to incite violence. In South Africa, in 2021, July 21, we experienced the level of violence and the destruction of property that we have never witnessed before in July 2021. That was before our act came into operation, which gave the FPB the power to regulate their space. In other words, even though the legislation that we are implementing as the FPB was passed by Parliament in 2019, but it was only operationalized on the 1st of March, 2022. So FPB wasn't really dealing with that space. So we saw a lot of violence being fueled through social media platforms that led to the destruction of property or nationwide looting. Many businesses were looted or burned down, and some we haven't even recovered. And it was the social media, because people were fueling this through misinformation, disinformation, and making sure that they were fueling that kind of content. So I think that was a major experience. And I think I wasn't with the FPB at that time. And when I came to the FPB to implement the act together with the team, I think that was the first task that we needed to do. And also acts of racism, understanding South Africa's history as well, that a lot of this kind of content get distributed through social media platforms. The right-wing groups now are using social media platforms to fuel those kind of social disharmony. And for us, I think that's the experience that one faces on every day. But the other one was around what you call sextortion. First case that we dealt with in 2022 in South Africa, where a woman had a relationship, the relationship went sour, and then her nude picture was shared by a boyfriend. You can imagine the impact of that. She was a key person as the speaker of the provincial legislature. So she didn't even go to work, and the impact of that wasn't only on her, but also on the family, the grandchildren, and because they could no longer go to school. Everyone was talking about these pictures. And for me, that showed that in as much as technology has brought immense opportunities, but there are a lot of risks that we face every day, and it's important that we need to deal with that. And when we engage with this woman to say, do you want to press charges because we can support you? She said, I can press the charges, but for me, this is similar to rape, because if I have to go to court, I need to relive this experience because I need to explain what happened. And I think for many women, they will say, the person can be arrested, but the scars will remain. And for many, many years, like we often say, the internet doesn't forget. So that's the nature of experiences that one faces. And on daily basis, you can imagine, I'm just using these few cases, but you can imagine on daily basis, at personal level, how many people face this kind of challenges, particularly women and children, because what has become very clear is that this technology now has become a sort of a new form of abuse for women and children. 95% of sextortion cases or deepfakes relate to women, and that tells you how dangerous the environment is. That's why, as the Film and Publication Board, we're working hard to ensure that we've got what you call online gender-based support program to assist the victims of online gender-based abuse, with whatever support that they need, whether it's legal, whether it's psychosocial support. Even though we don't dispense that ourselves, we can refer these women to the right channels where they can get assistance. But I think is the lasting impact that it had on their social being, because being online is no longer an option. It's a right that everyone must exercise. And again, for many women out there and girls, this is a way to make a living. There are others whose work involves online platforms, and therefore, if you being harassed there, then how are you going? You are being denied an opportunity to make a living out of that. So that's why I think it's very important that we work around that, really. So those are some of the experiences that we must deal with. As I always say, it's all of us responsible to ensure that we create a safer online environment for all, irrespective of gender or age and so forth.
That's quite tragic as well, because the backlash that women and children, especially, that they face online, and how they're used as medium to regulate content, how to spread misinformation, disinformation. They're used as an objective over there. So that becomes a little sensitive. I think this is across the globe issue that, how we are addressing the issues pertaining to women and children, their safety, their privacy, their security. And we all have been talking about it. And today, tech facilitated gender based violence is also, we come across a lot of issues around that. So, if I have to ask you in this context, do you also face any challenges in regulating content to protect children? And if yes, then how do you address it?
Look, the challenge is that the biggest challenge that we are facing is that online environment is borderless. In other words, it knows no jurisdiction. Most of the time, you find that the cases that we are dealing with are not necessarily originating from South Africa. They are originating elsewhere. So how do you deal with that? Because you can't be in those countries. That's why I think the need for collaboration is quite key. Hence, we are, as Film and Publication Board, we are a member of InHo, which is a network of internet hotlines. In other words, if there's a case, then a case is reported to us. We try to trace the case, investigate. If we see that it's in another country, then we can either report it to InHope, or we can link up with a hotline in that country to investigate and deal with it. The same thing if something is coming from South Africa, they do that. I think to a certain extent that assists us a lot in terms even of prosecuting cases relating to child online violence. That assists us. But also from a regulatory perspective, we are also part of the Global Online Safety Regulators Network, which is a network of online safety regulators across the world. Launched in 2022, we are now close to 10 members of online safety regulators. This is more to bring about collaboration, share experiences, and drive regulatory coherence, because whether you are in India, whether you are in Nepal, whether you are in Sri Lanka, the impact is the same. And I think it's even worse for people that are in developing countries, because all these social media platforms that we are talking about, the big techs, they are not in India, they are not from India, they are not from South Africa. they are from first world countries, and you know the attitude towards the developing countries sometimes. And that's where they like not respecting those laws in those countries. So when we work together through this platforms or through these forums like In Hope and Global Online Safety Regulators Network, then that assists us to kind of share experience on how do we deal with them and develop some common understanding or share best practice on how to address this online challenges that we have.
And to understand this further, how how do you strategize, or what steps do you take to educate parents, educators, and children about safe media consumption practices? Because awareness is somewhere is the key, and until we educate them about the harms and the benefits of it, probably we might latch more. So, what strategies at Film and Publication Board do you adopt, or in the South African context also, if you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah. The correct, like you said, the first line of online safety is education. That's why I think as the Film Publication Board, we got an advocacy team that visits schools and engage with the young children, engage with the teachers, and then we are working on a teacher training for online safety, where in which we can teach teachers and parents on online safety. What are the things that they need to take care of? Because one thing that we have noticed is, and I think there was a research that was done in South Africa on how do children get exposed to harmful content or system. Most of them is through their parents' gadget, innocently so. And I think for us is what kind of measures can we put in place to ensure that your child, by merely looking at your phone, doesn't have to access the kind of content that is there, because this kind of content pops up anyway, anytime. So I think it's very important that first of all we educate the parents, the teachers, and then we go to the children themselves. I think that's what the team always does. It's always out there engaging with schools, engaging with teachers and parents, and also the law enforcement agencies. It's because they, at the end, they are the second layer in terms of enforcement. In other words, the first part is the parents, the teachers, and then the law enforcement agencies, ensuring that there's regular training, because if they go and report it, and parents go and report it, and then the police don't understand that, or the law enforcement don't understand that, it becomes difficult really to enforce the law. So for us, that regular training to parents, to the teachers, is quite key in terms of fighting this online harms that we see every day. So that's what normally happens. We try, but sometimes you find, especially in the developing countries, the parents, when coming to these technologies, cannot even beat these children. So that's the other part that I think we are dealing with on a regular basis. Children are very busy. Parents are very busy to attend some of our training courses, but I think that's something that we try to do all the time. But training and raising awareness and education is quite key. Visiting schools, those are things that we do. But we also have what we call the Online Safety Youth Council, which is sort of a structure representing the youth within FPB. So they visit schools and have that peer-to-peer kind of discussions, because you've noted that sometimes this youth, they cannot engage with the adults on online safety and things that they experience, because they say we are very judgmental, but they need to have their own conversation with their peers. And I think we have found it to be a very impactful kind of intervention that we have as the FPB. I think for now, I think there are about 3 or 4 that kind of youth council in the world. I think eSafety was the one that started. I think Ireland, we followed Australia in that. And then I've seen a number of them popping out in various jurisdictions. But I think it's a very huge platform where in which the youth can engage on online harms peer-to-peer without us as the elders trying to set the law and things like that. So I think it's a good platform. So for us, continual engagement with the parents is key, is the first line. Because if the parents understand the harms, it becomes better.
And to add on to that, how do you measure the impact of such programs, the trainings, the engagements that you do with parents and educators? Is there a way?
The first one, because we are impact-driven organization. The first one is one of the tasks that we do as the Film and Publication Board, and I think when I engage the other hotlines, they don't do that. In other words, once they see act of CSEM or case of CSEM, they report it to the police, then they are done. Now, with us, the Film and Publication Board, unfortunately, we don't even report to the police. The police, after the matters are reported to them, they bring all those cases to us. We analyze, we provide reports, and then we present evidence in court. So one of our yardsticks is successful prosecution. That we want to see, working with whether the police or the prosecutors, in making sure that these cases are successfully prosecuted and people get long-term prison sentence. That's what you want to see. That's the first impact. Then the second one is when we see parents being aware, the degree to which they can implement the measures. It's not an easy thing to measure in that regard. But I think for us is when we engage and see parents being aware of the things that they do, that FPB is helping us in this regard. I think that's how we try to measure impact, and the number of engagement that we have with the young people at universities. So we measure the impact through those kind of the number of engagements that we have, and how do we see children responding to that. That if, say, before the FPB came, this was where their level of awareness around online harms was. Now, after the FPB, this is where it is now. I think that gives us comfort that maybe there's a work that we're doing. It's only a tip of the iceberg, because you see this is huge. But I think bit by bit we'll get there. Still a lot of work to be done though. And I'm in South Africa, has got 60 million people. I'm trying to think about you in India. How much? So you need to work with partners, because you can't do it alone. You need to work with partners, civil society, and whatever. So one of the programs that we are thinking of introducing is a sort of a grant format, in which we say, these are the NGOs. We give them the material. They go out there, they train people, or they raise awareness, and then we give them money every year to do that, and then we do oversight over that, because I think they know their communities better, and then they can engage with them better, unlike us as the FPB going there. In addition to, because you can't say we'll use radio or use the social media platforms as the only tools. That's not enough. You still need to go there physically and engage. That's why I think the partnership with the civil society and NGOs would be critical in spreading the message. So that's one program. Yeah, that's one program that we want to introduce. Hopefully, but it needs more money, a lot of money, and these days money is something that is hard to get by. So, but we'll try. If it means we have to do a lot of fundraising for it, I think is one that we want to see happening.
Definitely, I totally agree on that. We need money to make things more actionable. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's morely in the talking terms only. So to execute a program to reach out to the masses, you need to have that kind of a backing, that kind of a support system to interact. Only then we can bring some kind of an impact. So if I have to put all of this together, our conversation together, and this is something of a topic that is addressed as a trust and safety issue. How do you think this can be addressed more prominently with the experts globally?
Like I said, I think the online space is not only borderless, it is vast, complex, rapidly evolving. And no one can say, I've got this under control, or I can do this on my own. Therefore, what you need is one, collaboration, and a multi-stakeholder approach. Collaboration locally and internationally. That's why I think the initiatives such as your InHope, Global Online Safety Regulators Network, and there's now a new movement on trust and safety forums that are sprouting all over the world. We are hosting one in February on behalf of Africa. We call it Trust and Safety Africa, where we bring in experts, technology vendors, and regulators, civil society to talk about this. I think that's if you collaborate, share best practices and experiences, share models. I think that's the way to go, because no one can deal with that on their own. I think that's the most important thing, that no one can deal with online safety on their own, irrespective of how much resources they have, because it's so vast, it's rapidly evolving. Therefore, you need to collaborate more, and not only with regulators, but across. And hence, I like the model of the Global Online Safety Regulators Network, where you got regulators, you got civil society as observer members, you still have got vendors who can share with you what are the kind of technological development, but academia, parents, teachers, all of us have to work together, because you see, this kind of the online harms, think about it. And I always say this even to my team, that this is not an 8 to 4 p.m. kind of work or office kind of work. First and foremost, I'm a parent, I'm a brother, and so forth. So I have to make sure that my children are protected. So it's not just kind of work. I think it's an obligation that I have as a person, as a parent, and so forth. So it requires all of us working together across all the spectrum, across continents and across seas, all of us working together. For me, when I see these things, I raise more awareness, but I want to see more engagement at community level, more time being spent with teachers and parents. If we can achieve more time with teachers and parents, and allowing the youth to engage more, to warn them about online harms, I think we would have at least half of our work would have been done, because they are the victims, as well as the perpetrators too, because in every room where you are discussing online safety, one of them is a victim, or there may be victims in there, but equally there are perpetrators in the same room. So how do you create an environment where the two of them can understand that, no, don't do this, to protect each other? So we can only do that if we, continuously engage with the youth more, parents more, about children, because children, honestly, they are just innocent. So they rely on us to protect them more. But it requires passion. It requires more commitment from all of us to make sure that we create, like I said, a safer online environment for all, irrespective of where they are. It doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter. Particularly for the developing world, I see that we are more vulnerable, and therefore it's important that we use our position of influence to raise this awareness in those countries.
No, thank you for putting that together. This was incredible and very insightful, as you shared insights from the South African context. Thank you for adding those values and the key points to our trust and safety talks at Social Media Matters. Thank you for your time, Dr. Mashilo. This was something that we always thought of, having this context of collaboration is the key, working together is the key, because nothing can be done solely. We need to have teams coming together, institutions coming together, and we need to go back to our roots, to educate and to aware more and more people, so that what we are thinking sitting in one room about um, setting boundaries or limiting, right? Of course, we have that kind of I would say, the power of doing it somewhere, but we need to go back and tell people that this is what is required, this is what is coming up, and you need to be sensitive towards it. So thank you again, once again. Uh, Before I close this discussion, if you can nominate one person for our next interview, we would be happy to hear that name.
David Mwapeng.
Okay, sure.
You know,
David.
I was with him in Manchester. He's from Botswana, a neighboring country. He's running an NGO like yourself, but he's doing incredible work. Despite his lack of resources, he's doing incredible work promoting online safety on the continent. I think he's doing an excellent job. So I will recommend him. And the other one, obviously, is my friend based in Ireland, Jason. You would call him? He was in Manchester too. He's doing an excellent job as well on training online safety. But I think the one that I would highly recommend is David Mopeng. He's a real ambassador of online safety.
Thank you. Thank you for recommending him. We'll get in touch with him. And of course, you will be happy to see him very soon on our talk. So thank you once again. Thank you for your time. And this was wonderful.
Thank you very much, Pratista.
Thank you.
And to the entire social media matters in India.
Thank you so much.